The White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, was asked a question during a recent press conference by Fox News' Peter Doocy that, as is often the case with Peter Doocy, was absurd, pointless, a waste of everybody's time, and was pushing Fox News' latest manufactured controversy. This time, it's not the Biden administration's war on gas stoves or war on meat or whatever. This time, it is the war on beer. And apparently, Peter Doocy is concerned about the Biden administration possibly limiting the number of beers per week that Americans can drink. Now, if I have to spoil the story for you, the Biden administration is not doing that. And I'll talk about where this talking point came from. But I did love Karine Jean-Pierre's responses, you'll see in a moment, to the question of just kind of laughing and then asking what I think everyone's, with a lot of these manufactured controversy, culture war distractions, what the response is, just knee-jerk, which is, where is this even coming from? Again, I'll show you where it came from, but first, here's this.
I have another question that you probably were not expecting.
Okay.
Does President Biden want to limit Americans to 2 beers a week?
Where is this coming from? Maybe I didn't miss you so much. Where is this coming from?
All right, well, Dr. George Koob, who is the director of the National Institute of Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, says the U.S. may soon follow Canada and recommend just 2 beers a week. How do you guys think that's going to go?
Let me tell you what I'm not going to get involved in that question right there. I have no idea. I've not seen the data. I cannot speak to this. I will leave it to the experts and not weigh
So
in.
if the experts say 2 beers a week, that's okay with President Biden?
I will leave it to the experts. I'm just not.
So let me say this first. That is not the quote from Dr. George Koob. He was misquoted. Before showing you what actually was said, even in the question, Peter Doocy contradicts himself because he says, is it the case that Biden's going to limit the amount of beers per week to 2 per week that Americans can drink? And then later says, because Dr. George Koob said that the recommendation might be XYZ. Again, that's not what he said. We'll get to what he did. But even if he did, a recommendation is, as you hear that word, an indication that you're not going to be forced to drink less. Limit insinuates that the Biden administration is going to have some regulation that forces Americans to only drink a certain amount of beers per week. But the recommendation from the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism is just that, a recommendation. It's advice. But actually, in this interview, he didn't say that. Instead, as Mediaite notes, asked him what direction the guidelines could change, Dr. George Koob, the director of the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, said, I mean, they're not going to go up, I'm pretty sure. So if alcohol consumption guidelines go in any direction, it would be toward Canada. Meaning, Canada recommends less than we do. So if we change the guidelines, we're not going to say more than 14 beers per week, but we might change it a little bit down to something more in the direction of Canada, meaning we'll just decrease possibly the guidelines, the recommendations, the advice that our institute gives to people as far as how to live a healthy life while also consuming alcohol. And what's interesting is, if we're talking recommendations, I think we could all admit, ideally, we could just drink none. We could also eat 0 bowls of ice cream and eat no candy, but we do some things that aren't necessarily ideal for the health of our bodies, for the enjoyment of it. So then we go to institutions such as the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism to get recommendations about, while engaging in that activity, what's a guideline that would keep me healthy, would keep me away from alcoholism and stuff like that. And so it's absurd in every which way. He didn't say what he was quoted to have said there. And also, it's not Biden limiting anything, even if they changed the guideline all the way down to what Peter Doocy said that they would, which doesn't even seem to be the case. But as I introduced this story saying, this is a part of the broader Fox News manufactured set of controversies to distract from the failed policies of these right-wing politicians and instead say that Biden's doing all these different things that he's not actually doing, again, as a distraction. And we've heard the meat Biden's going to take, guns he's going to take, he's going after gas stoves and water heaters. And I wanted to, in this segment, reference something we talked about in the past with Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn, saying that it's so horrible what Biden's going to do with water heaters, this new Department of Energy regulation, is another example of Biden's war on appliances. We'll talk about why this is so absurd after watching this clip once again.
Well, you're right about that. And it's been your washing machine and your dishwasher and your fireplace, your light bulbs, anything that they can go after that is a convenience item that makes life easier at home. They're trying to change the standards on this in order to have people buy more efficient appliances.
Why?
And Harris, people don't want this. You know, it's like with electric power generators and transformers. With the transformers, they're trying to...
Okay, and then she goes on and on. The lower third, Chiron, says Biden's war on appliances targets water heaters. And I play that one for you because you have two categories of these manufacturer controversies. You have the fake ones, the beer story. Biden's not doing anything that would limit the amount of beer you can drink. So it's just not even accurate. And then you have them responding to real stories, real regulation changes or proposals from the Biden administration in a way that is just completely bizarre. Because here, the water heater specific thing she's talking about here, the Department of Energy, as the Washington Post reports, said its proposal would save consumers $11.4 billion on their energy and water bills each year. And it is based on forcing these companies to update 80-year-old technology. So yes, it also, which as a progressive, I care about this, but for you, Marsha Blackburn, maybe you don't, it also would be more efficient and thus is in the interest of protecting our environment, which you should care about. But since you don't, at least speak to why you want your constituents to pay more in energy and water bills. Why? Because you're more obsessed with your culture war and anti-Biden talking points and your political attacks, and you're completely blinded by your partisanship, and that takes the front seat. That's the priority over actually benefiting your constituents. Because in a reasonable world, everybody would be on board with this proposal that would implement regulations that would save consumers money and also benefit our environment, or be better for, I should say, our environmental situation. So on both fronts, responding to actual stories or making up fake ones, it's all in the interest of a rather absurd goal. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show hours before all the clips are able to be uploaded to the YouTube channel, plus get the bonus show on the weekends, you can do so by going to lukebeasleyshow.com/membership. That's lukebeasleyshow.com/membership, and there's a link in the description.